Hi, welcome. This is talk time where I talk about all sorts of things to do with clinical hypnotherapy. Today's session, we're going to be talking about regression, what it even means. So buckle up and I hope you enjoy this one. Now, I have been in this field for over 30 odd years, and one of the key components to clinical hypnotherapy practice is being able to do regression sessions with my clients. Now, you might be wondering perhaps what goes on in a regression session. So I thought we'd go through a couple of key points that I like to teach my students and that may help you out there, even if you're a student from another school and you've come across this today. Hopefully these understandings will help you to integrate your learning. If you're new to hypnotherapy and want to know more about it, of course, hopefully this is a beginning point where you can start to get a little bit more into the concepts of things. So we've got age regression. So returning to a general period in earlier life. This is something that maybe a person's had a difficult childhood and they might have had tricky relationships with their family, or something may have happened, but not a specific one-off situation. It's general, that's affected how they felt as a child and how that's affected them as an adult. So as a clinical hypnotherapy session progresses, I am very curious about a little bit, what's going on here? Does this person potentially need to do some inner child work? That means that the adult that they are today can talk to that little self, that younger child that they once were. And that's how we tend to go into the regression, with that idea that the adult that they've become today has got a lot more wisdom and insight into what was really going on there. And there's a part of them, a little childlike part, that is still feeling hurt or wanting to protect themselves in some way, and it may be creating a reaction as their adult self. So it's almost as if they feel 6 years old all over again, and they're creating this reaction as if they were 6. And as a clinical hypnotherapist, it's really important to support a client to overcome trauma, even if it's an ongoing trauma experience growing up, or it's one or a couple of events that have happened specifically. So the age regression really just takes them back to that age that they want to support, wherever that is in their development. When we think about the idea of taking the regression back to a cause, this is another type of regression session where you're inviting the client to journey back to where this began. And it's quite a different kind of invitation. Whereas if we're working with the inner child, we don't always need to know where it began. It's more generalized. If I'm guiding a person into working with their inner child, I might even set up the session in a really safe way where we anchor in a powerful, positive, safe emotion or safe space where the client has the ability to go back to that place, or they have the resources from that place that helps them to go with all of those resources and do that work with their inner child. Now, the inner child doesn't have to stay in the scene that they were in the past. You can actually allow an invitation for the adult that they are today to go and collect that inner child and take that inner child to the safe place so they can do work together and help healing occur. This is really important because when we're in hypnosis, it's really anything is possible. And we can allow the mind to create the best possible environment to do the healing work. And if that means removing that little self from those past events and taking them into neutral territory, where they can feel heard or they can be guided and supported from their adult self, and the wisdom that they bring. That's a big part of what a regression session can be like. A lot of therapists do regression and they get the client to talk out loud. Now, I do a bit of a combination, but also there's equally a lot of hypnotherapists that never get the client to speak out loud in words. It's all very private. Now, there are pros and cons to having the client do private stuff from within. The difficulty for a therapy session and its outcome is when the client might want to please you and might nod their head or indicate that they've done something, but they actually haven't done the task at all. They just want to get out of the session, get out of there, and you'll never see them again. There's also, if a person's stuck, as a therapist, you want to be able to feel confident enough to ask them, so what's going on? What do you need? That's going to help you to heal today. And getting them to articulate that out loud is very, very powerful, because I'm a great believer in intention. Intention is essentially the beginning of something new. And if we intend that we want to do some kind of work with the idea that we're going to heal, the client needs to be feeling like they own the process. You're there to guide them to an extent, but they're the ones with the answers. So as a therapist, I would really avoid things like giving the therapist a solution. I might offer an idea, but definitely in a more gentle way. So I might ask it as a question. So would it be okay today for your little self to have a voice? So this is an idea. Now the client has the ability to say yes or no. And that's really important, that you're asking permission for the client to do that work at different periods during the session. Would it be okay for your adult self to come and support that little self today? And again, this is a big part of permission work when we're doing this deeper healing. There needs to be compliance. And when someone's saying something outside into the room, it feels more real than just sometimes saying it in their mind. So it gives them power. They've given it a voice properly. And I for, all the years that I've been working with people, I definitely lean into that. I want to witness and hear that that person is doing the work that they need to. Now, it doesn't mean that I need to know everything that happened. That's not important as much as I want to guide a healing process moving forward. And I want to allow that little self and the adult self to have a voice around reframing, making sense to their best ability of what happened, acknowledging what happened, forgiveness if that's needed, and then the ability to move forward, in a loving way on some level. So these are things that are quite layered. And when I'm teaching my students, it does take a bit of time to develop this understanding. It's not something that you learn just like that. It is something that you have to integrate as deep understandings and then practice quite a bit to get smooth at doing this sort of work. However, it is definitely worth it, and it goes against what we call scripts. So a lot of people rely heavily on scripts. And in the hypnotic field, there are limitations when you're using a script with a client, because the client doesn't understand the script and it may not be detailed enough to match the client's world. all what the client needs. It's a huge assumption when we're using scripts in certain ways. So when we're doing regression, it really is client-led, but you are supporting that client through that process. There's also past life regression, and there's a lot of arguments within the hypnotic sort of community about whether that's even a thing. But I think I go on the idea of teaching my students to respect other people's experience. Memory in itself is not always completely true. It's a construct. And if a person spontaneously regresses to a past life, it's not for the therapist to argue whether that's real or not. Just as it's not for the therapist to argue whether that past experience of them as a little child was true as well. Because the brain will construct what that client needs to do whatever it is that they need to do to go and feel more confident or overcome a fear or phobia or put the past where it belongs so they can move on and feel lighter and more confident and calm and peaceful in their life. There are all sorts of reasons why someone comes in where you might think, yes, regression session is definitely going to be useful for this particular client. Not all clients do regression with me. So it's not a one size fits all either. We need to look at what's really going on here, and is there a block? Is there something still holding that client back that they need to somehow resolve and let go of? Maybe regression may be a good fit for this particular client. When we're looking at dealing with parts, there are ego states that develop. So that part that feels scared. Now, it may not be necessarily any time in the timeline that the person can identify where that started from, and that's okay too. But we can deal with that part in a really wonderful way. So even if, again, they don't know when it first happened, the part exists because the person's experiencing that part. So we start to work with that part to give it a voice, just as you would work with in a regression session to give that little self a voice. You would allow the adult that they've become today to talk to that part, to express how that part has been affecting life and what that adult self may need, so the part can understand. And then the part has an opportunity to have a voice too, to explain what it thinks it's trying to do for that adult self. And with that deeper level of understanding, often we can create an environment where the client can create a new understanding and new contract moving forward, an agreement of how those parts might work together and integrate those parts. Now, there are many ways of working with clients, and many hypnotherapists that you might see journeying someone has their own unique style. So, of course, I've developed my style over the years as well, based on what I've observed and also how I've experimented and worked with clients over the years and how that's grown me as a therapist. So as I'm working through with my students, the role of memory is quite interesting. All memory is constructed reality. It's not really as solid as we might think. And if there is a memory that's missing, often the brain will fill in the gaps without our conscious awareness that we've made up stuff. So it will treat that memory as if it's true. And this is something that we need to be aware of when we're working with clients. The body keeps a score. So the body often retains the emotional memories through physical symptoms and patterns like jaw grinding or gut issues or other aches and pains, migraines potentially, and things. So trauma can be stored at that cellular level. And I think hypnotherapy is a really good modality that can help to clear that body and the energy and how it's been held. So the art of suggestion and also giving those parts a voice as well as part of the work of clearing. Now, the body might have had a traumatic experience at a certain age, and again, regressing back to that causation or age can be extremely helpful to journey that person through clearing that memory or past event. It is important to establish safety during regression work, preparing the client, so always normalizing the concept of regression to reduce any misunderstandings, and using clear and empowering language to describe the process. So it's a journey inward to uncover and heal. So we want to state the positive outcome, why we're actually doing it. It's not to relive, it's not to re-traumatize, but it's to reframe. So creating a safe anchor as we go and do this. I talk to my clients, I guess, about what is your safe place, or what is your happy place? And I might utilize that as a positive anchor, a peaceful memory of a time or an object that gives them comfort, some kind of room that they can imagine themselves in that's filled with peace and calm and confidence, whatever that might be. So there are many ways that we can create the safe anchor that they can come back to or they can come from before they actually start to go into a regression. So they come from a resourceful state, okay? A positive state of mind to do the work in. You can also use objects like soft toys, weighted blankets, fidget tools, anything that might ground them during the regression session and just help them to get a sense of being in their body rather than reliving the trauma that they might have experienced. And that can be really important for some of my clients. The client-led healing philosophy is really important. It's something that I like to share with my students. So the therapist is a guide, not a fixer. And the regression allows the subconscious to bring forward the most relevant experience for healing. So I trust that, the client it knows where to go. So it's trusting that process. And then there's this permission-based practice that I really reinforce, as I was mentioning earlier. So always invite the client to do the work, avoiding leading and imposing interpretations, or sort of remembering to stay curious and compassionate and open as you guide the client through their process. When we're looking at the idea of regression, if you're interested to know more about regression and would like a session, you can contact me via my normal website, meredithmccarthy.com. Or if you would like to learn about more, to do with hypnosis and how to be a clinical hypnotherapist, we do have a training. So you can hop on our website, the nzach.ac.nz, and there's more information about what we cover, and you can book in a discovery call with me and I can answer any questions that you might have. But if you have listened to this and if you enjoyed it, please like the video, because it really is helpful to the algorithms out there, so people can find this information more and we can get it out there to a wider community. It is important too that the client feels safe. So creating a safe environment for the client to relax into, this is crucial. If you're going to do deep regression work on the first session, you must make sure that the client's in rapport, that you have built up enough of an understanding, clarity about who's sitting in front of you, that they feel safe to let you guide them. Okay, so it's really important. But we talk about these things and how to support building that rapport and creating that safe place and really explaining regression and going through that process and tuning into the resources of the adult self and how to facilitate that healing and hold that space and then return and sort of connect with the client and support them through that journey of healing. So yes, if you would like to tune in, Talk Time happens once a week, and I put out all sorts of videos, again, anything to do with hypnosis. So today I thought I'd talk about regression because that's the modules that we're covering at the moment with our students, and it was just fresh at the top of my mind. So hope this was interesting to you, and tune in next week for the next Talk Time. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.